You're on.
All right, good evening, everybody. For the record, it is Thursday, February 27th, 2020. It's 5:15 PM. The Wenatchee City Council is out of executive session. Call the meeting to order. It's time for our Pledge of Allegiance time. I don't know when it turns. Whose turn is it? Councilmember Bailey, you want to do it?
I'll do it. There we go.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, and for roll call this evening, we have 6 council members with us today. Councilmember Harold is not with us, so we do have a quorum. First item on our agenda are consent items, which includes approval of this evening's agenda, the vouchers, and the minutes from our previous meetings.
Your Honor, I make a motion to approve the agenda, vouchers, and minutes from previous meetings.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Huffaker, second by Councilmember Kulas to approve this evening's agenda, voucher, and the minutes from our previous meetings. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item on our agenda would be citizen comment period. This would be a time any member of the audience would like to address something that's on tonight's agenda or not on tonight's agenda. We'd give you 3 minutes. I see someone with a St. Patrick's Day hat on, so this would be a time where you could come up and address the council on some important issues.
Very important issue. And I have brought along my friend Dave Harold, who cannot join us tonight because I believe he's on a cruise somewhere collecting leprechauns for the parade.
Oh, I'm sure he is.
Yes, he is.
Probably researching who the Grand Marshal is going to be.
I believe so, yes. I'd like to thank the city council and the mayor for inviting us, or not inviting us. We weren't on the agenda, so we just like to drop in. The reason for me being here, along with Dave, obviously, is to notify the council and the mayor that the St. Patrick's Day Parade is coming. Believe it or not, it falls on the 17th this year. Mark, you're not joining in on this with me.
It's coming.
And we would like to invite the mayor to lead our parade, as he has in years past. And also would like to send a special invitation to the council. We'd love to have you follow the mayor down the parade route, if you would. So
It's a lot of fun.
yes, it is. Usually it's on a Tuesday night this year, so hopefully the crowd will be as large as it normally is. We have a new thing that we're going to try out this year. We've decided that if the mayor casts a shadow or does not cast a shadow, that spring will be within 2 or 3 days after St. Patrick's Day.
Excellent.
Yeah.
We might get winter then, the way things are
Yeah,
going.
I
Things
know.
are sort of
We very
backwards,
well
aren't
could,
they?
Frank.
Yeah.
So unless the council would have questions of me, then
7-ish.
7-ish is when
Okay.
we always start the parade, as you know.
Yep.
And just about anybody can be in it if they'd like. I've heard some really special things. We've got about 20 pugs that are going to be in it this year from Firehouse, so that ought to be
Excellent.
just a treat. And of course, the Omac Stampede Queen always comes down with her horse, so that's always exciting. So, any questions you might have of us?
It's just a really fun evening.
Yes, it is.
And I think they end up at Pybus afterwards for
Yes,
awards.
we actually have our
maybe
awards.
an adult
Thank you.
beverage or.
Yeah, we have our award ceremony at Pybus later, right after the parade is over. Parade usually takes anywhere from, 30 to 45 minutes,
Yeah.
depending on how many entries we have. It goes fairly quickly.
And how many times they go around.
Exactly, or how many times I can rotate them through, yeah, exactly. The great thing about it is it's kind of an announcement of spring is upon us, and just, especially given what happened to the market in the last 4 days, it's just a fun time for everybody, so,
Looking forward to it.
yeah, thank you very
And
much.
Thanks for putting that on, you and David and the team, and it's just a really fun night.
By far our favorite holiday, not even close.
How many
So,
years have we been doing this? Jim?
Believe it or not,
30?
this is 39 this year.
39.
The next year will be 40, so it's going to be really, isn't that amazing? Yeah, it's going to be special. So please, everybody that's here, please join us and put on your best St. Patrick's Day garb. And
That's a long parade. It's a block.
yeah,
It's downhill the whole way.
yeah, I'm going to say, one of the reasons Frank's can make it, because we go downhill. I've asked him to turn around and come back up, and he's
No, I'm not
refused
doing
every
that.
time. He said, no, I'm not doing this, I'm sorry. So, and of course, we'd love to have the chief of police there also. We need his sirens and his lights, so,
And keep you in order.
yes.
No motorcycles, right?
No, motorcycles are a thing of the past, yeah. That's why we've gone from motorcycle to horses.
Yeah, right.
Less likely to get out of control, huh?
Yeah, totally. So,
Right.
well, thank you very much.
Thanks, Tom.
Yeah,
And we'll
Appreciate
see you
it.
on St. Patrick's Day.
All right.
And say goodbye to Dave.
See you, Dave.
Bye, Dave.
All right, anybody else wish to address the council on, again, for public hearing items, we'll take public testimony for anything that's on tonight's agenda or any other comments? See no other takers, we will move on to our action items. We've got two regarding our civil service, first regarding some code changes and the second regarding some appointments. So Chief and Laura, come on up and.
Good afternoon. The item before you is the ordinance 2020-09, and that's a change to the Wenatchee City Code, amending the civil service system to remove any references to fire department, as the city no longer has a fire department. So we are requesting that the council motions to approve the ordinance to make that change. And the chief is here if you have any follow-up questions.
Seems pretty simple, since we don't have a fire department anymore, we probably don't need the civil service for that.
Probably the easiest code revision you'll do.
Surprised it took us this long to do it.
Yeah. So I think we'll deal with that one first, so if there's no objection.
I'll make a motion for the city council to adopt ordinance number 2020-09, amending Wenatchee City Code, WCC, Chapter 1.58, related to the civil service system.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Huffaker, second by Councilmember Cuevas to adopt ordinance 2020-09, amending Wenatchee City Code, Chapter 1.58, relating to the civil service system. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And second is to appoint 3 new members. I'll turn it over to Chief and Laura.
That's correct. So this item is for Resolution 2020-06, and it is to fill 3 vacancies. They did do a call for applications in December of 2019. The chief and the mayor reviewed the applications and have recommended for approval Gabriela Sanchez, Sean Gross, and Wayne Loringer. The terms will be set at the next committee, so we are recommending that council approve the resolution to make these appointments.
Yeah, so we had 7 applications. Chief and I went through them, and this is our recommendation. I don't know under the code how this all works, whether I'm the one that makes them with the council's blessing, but these are the 3 that we thought would fit the role really well.
Your Honor, I'd make a motion for the city council to approve resolution number 2020-06, appointing voting representatives to the Civil Service Commission, Gabriela Sanchez, Sean Gross, and Wayne Loringer.
Second. Motion by Councilmember Bailey, second by Councilmember Esparza to adopt ordinance number 2020-06, appointing voting representatives to the Civil Service Commission, that being Gabriela Sanchez, Sean Gross, and Wayne Loringer. Discussion? Wayne's in the audience. We can have fun with this.
So's Gabrielle.
Oh, Gabrielle's there. Hi, Gabrielle. But Gabrielle's nicer than Wayne. All right. Enough editorial comment. All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Gabriella. Thanks, Wayne, for agreeing to serve. This is a very important role in our civil service and hiring police officers, so we appreciate it. All right. Next item is regarding a contract to sell some property to our friends in Douglas County. Mr. King.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Steve King, Economic Development Director. So back in the 60s, the city bought property in Douglas County for gravel. And it's over there along Badger Mountain Road, just above Daniels Drive. There's a water tower over there that the East Wenatchee Water District owns. And then our property goes all the way up on top of the plateau and connects up close to where Badger Mountain, where Fancher Heights subdivision is. Back in 2008, we embarked on an effort to, and times were tough, to sell this property. And so 2008, the city council actually surplused the property, and then we tried to sell it. The problem is there was not adequate water supply, so it was very difficult to turn immediately into development. Over the years, we've worked on trying to figure out water solutions, and most recently, the adjoining property owners have been working hard on that effort and have come up with a solution So now our property has some opportunity to be developed. And as a result, Douglas County is interested in purchasing it because they have a road to fix, and then they would like to sell the remainder, I would imagine, off. And so this sale agreement is to Douglas County, but we expect it to be assigned. And so that's why the contract agreement says Douglas County or assigns. And they are working on solving the road issues as well as combining the other properties that Douglas County owns to be sold and redeveloped. And then that'll all fit into the water system solution. So we had appraisal done, and this contract amount is for a little bit higher than the appraisal. The appraisal was done in 2015, so it's a little bit old. So I think it's the amount is fair, and it's a good opportunity for the city to liquidate this property once and for all. We are retaining the right to extract about 75,000 cubic yards. We may have a project coming in the near future that will need that material. So that's has quite a bit of value to us, and so we have the opportunity to extract 75,000 yards for the next 10 years.
So to value that, if you were to buy that for this particular road project, you're thinking, what would it cost for us to go out and buy 75,000 cubic yards of material for fill for a road project?
Depending on where it's at, because you got to pay for the hauling of it, at least $1 million. Yeah. So there's the real value to the city in this property.
Retaining the ability to
Yeah,
mine it.
yeah.
And the other thing I think, just for the council and others, when we anticipated and did some preliminary drawings about subdividing, we needed access off of Fancher Road. And the timber company owned the parcel that we needed, so we had thought about talking to the timber company to acquire the ability then to come off of Fancher. And someone bought that out from underneath us?
Yeah, so the property that was between us and Badger Mountain Road and the property just to the south was owned by a timber company, and Douglas County purchased those. We were working to buy that property, and
Right.
yeah,
So ultimately, the only access we currently have to it's off of Daniels Drive.
correct.
Yeah. So our ability to develop, if we didn't partner with other people, would have been limited to some extent.
That's a very good point. The top bench was where the value is in this property.
Right.
About 20 acres of housing property.
And they're perfectly okay giving us the 10 years to continue to pull the gravel out of there?
Mhm.
And what kind of condition do we have to leave it in? I saw something about we've got to put topsoil back in once we're done with that, or?
Yeah, once we reclaim it, the permit, when we go into reclamation mode, the permit requires to make sure that the slopes are 2-to-1 or flatter, and then to seed it. Yeah. So, and we have that obligation now as it sits as well. Yeah.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah, and then just for the record, we sent this over to Douglas County. It got executed in a way that we don't feel is quite right, so I'm asking for a little leeway here in case some things need to be tweaked, but I've met with the city attorney, and we both feel like we know how to get this to the finish line. I think it's going to be in substantially that exact form for the most part, so we just got to work a little bit with the county attorney to make sure that we get what we want out of the way it gets signed and transferred. And Brad was pretty excited about this, so not that your finance director has anything to say, but he's been spinning in his chair for about a month, so. Yeah. Okay. All right, any questions for Steve? If not, I would entertain a motion.
Your Honor, I'll make the motion for City Council to authorize the mayor to negotiate and sign a purchase and sales agreement with Douglas County or assigns for the sale of real property commonly known as the City of Wenatchee gravel pit property.
Second?
Motion by Councilmember Esparza, second by Councilmember Bailey to authorize the mayor to negotiate and sign a purchase and sale agreement with Douglas County or assigned for the sale of real property commonly known as the City of Wenatchee gravel pit property. Discussion?
All I would like to say, Your Honor, is that I'm glad that this has finally come to fruition after 12 years. I started my career in the city council with kind of one of the first things we tackled, and it's just didn't seem to ever be able to make it go away, but I think this is a good solution to it, and glad to see it finally wrapped up.
This was part of our financing plan for the Public Services Center.
Yeah,
Kittredge.
right.
Was it really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we'll pay off a Public Services Center. Oh, it's already paid off. All right. All right, any other discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Steve. Bid for the Elliott Avenue multi-use pathway. Mr. Jammerman.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So I'm here tonight on behalf of Jacob Heiler, who's out of town this week. We, to present the award, to recommend an award of the bid for the Elliott Avenue multi-use pathway. This is being funded out of our Complete Streets grant money from the Washington Transportation Improvement Board. About $700,000 that's spread out amongst various projects throughout the city. The estimate on this project was $160,000, including engineering and construction. Construction estimate was $125,000, and the low bid on the project was from KRCI at $108,000 and some change. So we're recommending awarding this bid to KRCI, and we'll get this pathway underway this year.
So construction to start when and end when?
So they have to start work by August 3rd, and they have 25 working days. And the reason that we built in that leeway is it's a pretty small project, and we knew that if we gave them a large window, we'd get favorable bids.
Okay.
So they could, if they have a little break in one of their jobs, they can go in and do this real quickly.
Oh, good. Okay.
Your Honor, I make a motion for the City Council to award the construction contract for the Elliott Avenue multi-use pathway project number SW19-08 to KRCI LLC in the amount of $108,365 and authorize the mayor to sign the construction contract documents.
Second. Motion by Councilmember Kulas, second by Councilmember Hornby to award the construction contract for the Elliott Avenue multi-use pathway project number SW1908 to KRCI LLC in the amount of $108,365 and authorize the mayor to sign the construction contract documents. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Rob. All right, we've got 3 public hearing items this evening. So for public hearings, we'll hear from staff. We'll ask questions of staff. We'll turn it over to any members of the audience that would wish to address the council and back to the council for any action they may be willing to take. So the first is regarding community development fee revisions. Glenn DeVries.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. The council recently adopted last year a series of changes, new codes for code enforcement. One of them was a tool for the registration of defaulted mortgage and vacant properties to be able to look at the maintenance of those and hopefully get those back into the marketplace for needed housing. And in doing so, we needed a fee which helps us monitor them and make sure they're maintained, and it also is a way to nudge the companies into selling the property. But we neglected to have the language address vacant properties, which have gone through a foreclosure process, are owned by the mortgage company, but they're still vacant. So our request to you is to change that language to read defaulted mortgage and vacant property registration fee. So apologize about the oversight and would request that change be considered and stand for any questions you might have.
Any questions for Glenn?
So this really isn't going to change we're already charging the semi-annual fee of $300 and the inspection fee of $75. This is just clarifying the language of who this is addressing.
Yes, as we go forward, we'd be doing this. The ordinance set it up that we would be doing this for both, but our fee schedule needed to have it listed, and we just had that omission, and so it's just setting up so that it all functions together as far as how it was intended.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Any questions for Glenn? Any member of the audience wish to address the city council on this public hearing item regarding amending our planning development department fee schedule? Surprised we don't have lots of people showing up for this one. All right, so I will turn it over to the council for any action they may be willing to take.
Your Honor, I motion the city council to adopt ordinance number 2020-08, amending chapter 1.99.040 WCC pertaining to the community development department fee schedule.
Second?
Got a motion by Councilmember Hornby, second by Councilmember Bailey to adopt ordinance number 2020-08, amending chapter 199.040 of the Wenatchee City Code pertaining to the Community Development Department fee schedule. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Glenn. Thank you. Historic registration, Historic Register, 922 Idaho Street. Stephen and Glenn.
Tim.
Am I going too fast? Tim, turn off the TV set? What do you do? Oh, here it's coming.
Oh,
Yeah, there we are.
everybody's watching. Different presentation.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor,
Right,
members
gentlemen.
of the council. This evening, we have a nomination of 922 Idaho to be changed from a non-contributing to a contributing status at the Grandview Historic District. I'll just cover that briefly. So it is non-contributing. It's a historic structure. It's non-contributing. And it was non-contributing because in about 2004, 5, the property owners removed the original siding of the structure and added vinyl to the outside of it. And so it was a historic structure, but non-contributing.
And that was done prior to the formation?
Prior to the formation of the Grandview District, that's correct. So I've got a couple of pictures that I'll get to. There's some benefits that I can address as well of how that not only helps the individual property owner, but also the benefits of the Grandview District. So when we look at properties being added to the local register, or in this case, a contributing status to the Grandview Historic District, they carry the same weight as far as review by the Historic Board. We look at a couple of things. One is why is the structure significant? What did someone significant to the community live there? Is it architecturally a significant structure? And it falls under a couple of those categories. One, it's a combined Tudor colonial revival style. It's got great historic features to it. Also was used by the Presbyterian Church as a parsonage. So several prominent pastors of that church lived in this home, and so it qualifies under those two standards. So again, going back, so in 2003, when the inventory was done in preparation for the Grandview District, it had the original wood siding, and then in 2004 or 5, that siding was removed from the structure. It wasn't simply covered, it was removed, and then the vinyl was added. In 2006, the formation happened for the Grandview District. In 2016, new property owners purchased the property with the desire to restore the home to its original, or as close to the original as they could. So they worked on the interior, and then they went to the Historic Board and requested a certificate of appropriateness to remove the vinyl. And then, since there was no original siding, normally if siding is left underneath it, it would be restored and retained on the structure. In this case, where it had been removed, and the cost of the wood siding was expensive, too expensive. The cement fiberboard, the Historic Board reviewed that. They had a very good discussion. There's a couple of different varieties of the board, one that has a faux wood grain in it, and the board did not believe that that would match the historic nature of the structure. It makes it really look fake. So they went with a flat version that in the width and colors of the original structure. The Historic Board did grant that certificate of appropriateness, and then this year, the same property owners submitted a request to change the status from non-contributing to contributing. So here you can see the home in 2003. This is the original wood siding that was removed. I could not find any pictures of the vinyl siding that were of any resolution that you could really see there. Anyway, currently, this is what it looks like. So if I'm just going to go back one, forward one. They did a very, very nice job of matching the width of the boards and the color and to restore that historic look. Some of the detail work that they did as well. So as a non-contributing structure in the Grandview District, it's not eligible for the special tax valuation. This is a great benefit that is allowed to our property owners that have a contributing status. So work that they do over a 2-year period, if it exceeds 25% of the value of the structure, then they can enter into an agreement with the assessor's office, and a portion of their taxes are deferred or removed because of that work, to that value of that work. And so by changing the status, they would be eligible for the work that they have done. They could apply for the special tax evaluation. So not only is there a benefit to the individual property owner, but it's also a benefit to the district, as it encourages the continued preservation of properties to both the current residents and future generations, and to the neighbors. The Grandview District has a standard of 75% of the structures must remain contributing. So right now, we're at 87%, so it's very healthy. And any time that we can add to that, it strengthens the Grandview District. It makes it so that that district is viable for a much longer period of time. We have seen over the last couple of years a few structures on the edge of the district that have been removed. We've talked to some property owners about removing those. So anytime that we can encourage property owners to reinvest and change that from a non-contributing to a contributing status, it's a great benefit to the community as well as to the district. The staff recommended approval to the Historic Board. The Historic Board has forwarded a recommendation to you that the status of 922 Idaho be changed from non-contributing to contributing. And we have drafted Resolution 2020-07, which would accept the Historic Preservation Board's recommendation and change the status from non-contributing to contributing.
Just briefly, this affirmation of the Historic Board's recommendation on this helps to affirm the work that they're doing and the direction they've gone with that district. If you've had the opportunity recently to go through that district, you can see the significant amount of reinvestment and pride in that district, and a lot of really cool things are happening in that area. It used to be, that the name of the historic district was something that, we heard that some of the realtors were, reticent to mention that, but today it's a selling point. And people are, we're able to use these special valuation credits to help get that reinvestment and get to have a real partnership with that district and the residents. And I think the Historic Board is doing some great work. So
it's been quite a little, I know when we first started this, I think that we were pretty tough on people redeveloping their making improvements and being a real stickler to everything, that I think they were almost ready to dissolve it. And I think we've done a good job of, no, let's soften a little bit, work with them. And I think what you find now is it's probably the #1 desirable place to live in our city. I think most
My
people,
favorite.
I think Laura tried to get it, couldn't even find a house to buy in there. It's like, that's where people want to live, and it's because we've been not quite as stickler to making them put in the, stuff like this, where we've worked with folks. And I know it's not perfect, but it's a super cool house, and they did a great job remodeling it. So I'm,
Yeah, certainly better than vinyl siding.
yes.
So it's really
we can
exciting
all
to
agree.
see, sorry.
Yeah.
It's really exciting to see the reinvestment. It's really exciting to see someone want to make a structure contributing again and move that direction for the district as a whole.
Any questions for Stephen or Glenn?
Yeah, Your Honor, I want to follow up on a couple of things here that, having served on the Historic Preservation Board for quite a number of years before coming to the council, and having been a part of that, kind of that early formative stage, and where we had some interesting challenges working with homeowners and so forth in that area. I guess one of the things that, the siding, and I'm not here to, nitpick, because it is visually you can't really tell when you look at the two pictures, I mean, from the street, you can't tell the difference. I guess the question that I would have is that the State Office of Historic Preservation and so forth, which administers the standards, which are based on the federal standards of all of this stuff. And of course, vinyl siding and vinyl windows are kind of the ultimate no-nos in this thing. Is the cement board option there, is that approved by the state office, or do they allow it, or is it as an option or not?
So we have, make it real clear that this is not the same as the state process. We are allowed deviations through our local district, and we administer that as a city and as a community.
Okay.
And so we are not held to the same standards for the Grandview district. And so, as the mayor mentioned, there were some reevaluations of that district in order to save that district and sort of change the momentum and try to build some energy to go a different direction. And so some choices were made as a community where some of these materials were determined okay. So that choice was made in our code. So we do use the state guidelines, federal guidelines are of great assistance on a lot of different things. And some of those do definitely factor into play, but there are deviations that have been approved locally for the district. But that is treated differently in some areas that aren't in that Grandview district.
Yeah, because that was going to be my next question. Is that because we have these set of standards that we've set for the Grandview district, are those, I'm assuming they're different from the rest of the city, so this building may not have qualified if it was not in the Grandview district? Would that be a fair assumption?
Potentially.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the Grandview district does allow for alternative materials, so rather than historically accurate materials, wood. But yeah, so we would use the Secretary of the Interior standards as we look at structures outside of the Grandview district.
Yeah. Well, I noticed in your on page 76 of our packets there that they're outside of that, they're, Franklin and Idaho, but also, some areas that where there was, looks to me, is, some fairly significant deviations from that, but we're also, approved. So, I guess in taking the long view of this is, does that puts down the road, does that put us in any kind of risk of at some point trying to do some other things and then these things would not be accepted, that kind of thing?
I don't think so. And if you look at structures outside the district, one specifically that was involved with the state approval and looking for national credits, you look at the Conrad Rose, a lot of those features on the exterior structure are not wood. They're an alternative material. And that was approved by the state as well. And so I think, historic preservation and you looking at alternative materials is an evolving science. And I think we, the state office, are looking at maintaining the integrity of these structures. And there's certain features that do detract. If you had white vinyl in the front of a structure visible from the street, it has a sheen. It's very different. And so some things, under state guidance in our code, we really need to hold to. But there are some others where, if you look at the structure, where we as a community have some choices in our code, and really move that structure in our district. We feel, as far as what we're following the code in a good direction. Yeah. But it's certainly something to consider.
Yeah. Okay. I just, that whole vinyl siding, when you look at that, whenever it was, the 2003 picture, you obviously can't see it right up close, but to it doesn't look like it's, completely deteriorated or broken or rotted or whatever. I mean, it still looked pretty good. And then to tear that all off and not leave it, what is it, on the northwest corner of Idaho and Franklin, that house there, this summer, they did a lot of it was vinyl, and they tore all of that off down to the original wood. They put new wood in to replace the broken pieces and so forth, and it's an absolutely beautiful restoration piece. And so that's the kind of thing, I guess, I'm hoping we don't lower the standards to the point where it becomes distracting from the standards that are set. So
I think the Historic Board takes that very seriously, and
Yeah.
they do a pretty detailed review. If you ever get a chance to observe them in their efforts, they take it very seriously and have some really good discussions.
And where those historic materials exist, they certainly are encouraged to refurbish them and bring them back to their original standing. And unfortunately, in this house,
yeah, it was all threw it away.
the property owner, prior to any regulations that would have prohibited that,
Yeah.
took this action and removed all that siding,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
All right, let's see, anybody,
Good.
any member of the audience wish to address the council on this public hearing item? See no takers, I'll turn it over to the council for any action they may be willing to take. I can't talk tonight.
Well, Your Honor, I would make a motion for the city council to approve resolution number 2020-07, adding 922 Idaho Street to the Wenatchee Register of Historic Places.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Bailey, second by Councilmember Hornby to approve resolution number 2020-07, adding 922 Idaho Street to the Wenatchee Register of Historic Places. Discussion?
I just want to make one comment. I kind of like the idea that they've been given a little bit of flexibility to keep them from being cost prohibitive, because, as you'll remember, we've actually had a couple of people approach us and want to be removed
Yeah.
because they couldn't even get insurance to cover their house anymore. Insurance was cost prohibitive. So I think when we can do something that still keeps the character of the house, keeps the general look and feel of the house, I think it's great.
What we're doing in that district's pretty cool. It's really become something.
Can we visit that place? Can we check
Yeah,
it out?
come knock on the door.
People living there tonight.
And just a quick plug, on a yearly basis, there's a tour of homes in the historic structures and a lot in the Grandview District that the museum holds, and highly recommend, and that's a great tour.
All right, so all those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Glenn. Thanks, Stephen. All right, Mr. Olin. Looks like we couldn't get a business deal with the owner of a billboard.
Well, not yet. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Gary Owens, city engineer. I think the mayor just invited everybody to go knock on somebody's door.
Is that something he does?
Sometimes.
I'll make them do that.
Yeah, last but not least, I've got this ordinance that we don't really want to do, and I hope that we don't have to utilize it, but we are running out of time. And to recap on this, this is the oldest project that we've got in the books down there, the signal at McKittrick Street and the Avenue. And it's been around longer than Jim's been around and longer than the mayor's been around, actually. We're real close to the finish line on it. We want to get it constructed this year. And like I said in my agenda report, we need to get both Lamar Signs and the property owner to both agree to basically two separate offers in order to go forward and get our right-of-way certified with the Fed and get our construction authorization. And we got a lot of I's to cross, or I's to dot and T's to cross still before we can get there. So we may need to go forward and just take these properties at the fair market value and come back and work out the details of the actual cost after the fact in order to get our project constructed this year. So this ordinance authorizes staff and the attorney's office to take those actions once the date becomes effective, which is the one change, I think. Do they know about this change? Okay.
So Gary, when I look at the little drawing in here, are you saying that is it the property owner that we're having the issue with, or the sign owner, or both?
We're not getting any traction with either of them
Either,
actually
thank
at
you,
this
okay.
point in time.
And across the street, we've already handled that right away in front of the Q6 building. That's all done. We own the other side, so it's just as the last parcel.
This is the last part. I don't think QSIC is technically signed yet, but everything is worked out
Okay.
and everything looks good on
We have
that.
a meeting of the minds.
Yes.
Gary, why is this few feet on this corner so critical to this project? Can you explain that a little bit?
The few feet on the northwesterly corner of the intersection?
Yes.
Well, I think it's a little bit more than a few feet, but basically it aligns with the roadway section that currently exists up McKittrick Street to the westerly, which is, it's not comfortable. You know, the sidewalk gets really close to that, the Chimney's building there, and it's going to be an inconvenience for the access that they've added to that building on the McKittrick side. But basically, to align that road section and then to configure the intersection for truck turning movements and that sort of thing, that's just.
So is that turning radius? Is that just basically just to regular standard?
Truck turning radius
Yeah.
standard?
It's improving the acute angle of that intersection?
Yeah, plus the intersection's at a bit of an angle, although I think that's the benefited.
Yeah.
No, that's the sharper corner. So yeah, that angle makes it a little bit more difficult and kind of drags that return radius even a little bit further.
So we're taking the minimum amount of property we need in order to make that intersection function.
Yeah, we don't want to maintain any more right of way than we have to. And, you know, our design vehicles are based on the road usage and the truck classification and that sort of thing. So we have minimized the acquisition area.
Well, the reason I ask the questions is anytime we're doing an action like this, you know, I think we need to make sure that we can really justify the need for it. So that's why I asked the questions. And I do agree that that is a really odd angle. It isn't just a square corner there because of McKittrick's angle to Wenatchee Avenue. So
I can appreciate that.
Any other questions of Gary before I turn it over to the public? Any members of the public wish to address the council on this action item? See no takers. We'll turn over to the council for their item, or for their action. I will say, Keith, I've been mayor now 8 years and 2 months, and this is the first one of these that we've done, that I remember.
and I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's unusual that we get there.
Yeah, these are, you know,
Yeah.
things that we don't take lightly. I mean, it's like I say, it's, in my time on the council, we've never had to do this, but there are times, and I think this is one of them.
Well, I'll keep working with our consultant and sub-consultant to try to settle with these folks. Sometimes this is all it takes to light a fire and, you know, it's going to happen eventually. And it's, you know, sometimes you just don't want to see reality if you can avoid it.
Yeah.
Human nature.
All right, without any public comment, I'll turn it over to the council for any action they may be willing to take.
Your Honor, I make a motion for the city council to adopt ordinance number 2020-06, authorizing condemnation of property for improvements at the intersection of McKittrick Street and North Wenatchee Avenue for public roadways.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Kulas, second by Councilmember Cuevas to adopt ordinance 2020-06, authorizing the condemnation of property for improvements at the intersection of McKittrick Street and North Wenatchee Avenue for the purpose of public roadways. Discussion. Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Gary.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Mayor's report. Got a couple of things. First of all, last evening was the WDA annual banquet, and for those of you that didn't attend, they said a couple nice words about Steve King and gave him a standing ovation last night. So they really appreciated his work with the downtown. So that was a pretty cool send off for Steve. So I wanted to make sure that we mention that. I do have one sort of, I think, procedural question, and I'll sort of tee it up and let you guys sort of help me work through this. We had a department head meeting today, and Councilmember Cuevas, at my recommendation 3 or 4 weeks ago, gave me sort of a list of projects that he thought were really important to his district. And I think he gave me 10 of them. And I've turned them over to Public Works to just spend a few minutes sort of thinking about what those look like and how much those might cost. They really haven't spent much time on it. And Councilmember Kulas last week gave us a list of things that he sort of wanted us to spend some time on, which is fine. And then you had to follow up with Rob about some of the sidewalk stuff. And so as the person who's in charge of trying to figure out staff time and trying to figure out priorities, I'm trying to look at the rest of the group and say, how do you want me to sort of sort through those sorts of things and try to figure out on the sidewalk issue in particular, I think, you know, some stuff can come out initially pretty quickly, and then the rest of it's going to take some time. You know, Jose, we're going to have to spend some time with engineers sort of coming up with some math of what those sorts of projects might cost. And so I'm really sort of having a difficulty trying to figure out, obviously we can't be all things to all people, but I'm trying to figure out the right way to sort of arrange some of those things. So I'm looking for some help from the council to help us sort of think about priorities and work on this one, these two together, and then these two after that, or if there's a way to sort of help staff.
On my question on the sidewalks, that was really, that's an analysis issue. That's not a construction issue. It was just, as Mr. Chairman and I talked about today, a big deal was made out of that inventory was going to happen. I mean, we even drugged the interns to the council meeting to introduce them to the council, and then nothing happened. And all I was suggesting is, hey, let's throw it somewhere on our agenda so we can see what were the conclusions of that? What's the staff thinking that, what are other communities doing for filling in the gaps?
Right.
Yeah, what are solutions to try and get it repaired? Because if you walk this town very much on our sidewalks, we have some huge trip hazards. Some of those are actually in downtown, some of them are in residential, but if they
and we weren't
collected all
talking
this
about actually,
data-
let's implement a project. It's picking the staff's brain on how could we look at this non-motorized segment, the pedestrian segment of our community, but not actually saying, these projects.
Right.
Because if I can see the problem that you're talking about, because if we want to start our 10, 12 favorite projects, there's not enough money for it.
Right.
And there needs to be, equity in this process.
Yeah, and it's not even money, it's staff time.
Yeah, less money.
It's Jim wants me to work on this one, and Ruth wants me to work on this one, and you want me to work on, so if the consensus is that we're going to spend some staff time on the sidewalk procedures, that is certainly fine. We will do that, but that means maybe some of the other ones might sort of go, and I'm fine with the sidewalk one, because I think it does bring up some great policy issues, right? Are we going to force people to fix trip hazards? Are we still tearing out sidewalks to help folks, which I think we still are, although I think it's been a while since we've done one. I think
most people in our community don't know that exists.
Yeah, and then there's the selection process for how projects take place, and I think Glenn has said they took that inventory and used it for some of the safe street stuff, but I'm okay with that. I think we can get to that part, I think, pretty easily.
And as we discussed, with Glenn has and Mr. Owen has and whatnot, we go through our comprehensive planning process. I think we're just wanting to know when decisions are made for implementing the capital stuff, I'm not going to ask to direct anything in my district. It's not, it's in the comprehensive plan.
Right.
What we want to do. And the staff is best qualified for figuring out with you on which projects need to come to fruition to implement those plans that we've adopted. Those are more than the guidelines. Those are our strategy. Yeah. This is how the entire waterfront developed. It didn't develop nilly-willy. Right. There was a plan that we adopted that was really worked on hard, and staff brought to us the implementation elements. Yeah. That's what I expect. Yeah. I'm not really,
no, I'm fine. Yeah. So as long as you know that we're going to spend some time on the sidewalk issue, we'll get you guys information and we'll work on that over the next.
But again, at the 30,000 foot level.
No, that's fine. Yeah. Okay.
Well, I think if there's a list of projects that people want in their districts, then those need to be a work session item that keep brought forward, we need to discuss them
Yeah, and I think.
before we use staff time to.
Yeah, so I think for
vet 'em.
Jose, I said, give me a list, and he sort of prioritized them, and I think we'll take the first 2 or 3 and have staff spend a little bit of time just sort of looking at them. I just wanted to read them, but I don't want you guys to feel left out, that we're just doing stuff. I want you guys to know that that's what I'm doing, and we're spending a little bit of staff time. I don't want Travis to go, what, you did that for Jose? Well, I wanted, right? So I just want to make sure that we're open and honest about the things that we're spending a little, what I call limited staff time on.
Well, I think for me, the key to that, and in sidewalks, I think pretty much everybody agrees that's a pretty significant priority for the city to get going on. We've done a lot already, and it's been very successful. But I think the key here is that, each of us can come up with our list of 10 things. I could probably do that right off the top of my head right now in my district.
Right.
But I hope we don't get into, okay, so everybody gets 3,
Right, yeah.
that kind of thing, because there clearly has to be a prioritization.
Right.
That, there may be, 5 in yours and 4 in yours and 6 in yours or whatever, and I don't get one this year. But still there is some mechanism, and Gary and I had a conversation about that a while back too, about, there's obviously standards and those kinds of things.
Right.
Where do we put our money to get the best value for it?
But I don't want to be doing stuff behind your guys' back and say, why did Jose give me, right? So I just want you guys to know that's what we're doing. And if you got some other ideas, we can spend a little bit of time.
So
But
Frank, I would suggest that in the future, maybe send out an email saying, hey, guys,
right,
it's that time again for everybody to bring their list.
Right.
And, and so we could hand it over, to Public Works,
Right.
let them figure it out.
Yeah.
And then bring something back to us that they thought was a priority.
Yeah.
I think that's the fairest way to do it.
Right.
I think we should discuss that as a whole too. Like, what's the best benefit for the city based on what's
Make it a work
happening
session
in our-
item.
in our-
Yeah.
Make a work
Yeah.
session that we talk about
Yeah.
those priorities.
Ultimately, those decisions are made by you guys
Yeah.
with staff because you're going to approve them all, right?
But
Yeah.
That's.
And-
public
and-
We've got a
works.
work session to do that.
They have to.
So we really can interact and.
It's getting worse.
But a heads up that
Right.
this is coming
Yeah.
and everybody better,
So heads up,
Yeah, no.
if you got stuff you want to talk about, we'll get it on the list and we'll get it here in front of you and maybe do some preliminary work on what stuff might cost. And
This is part of our, kind of our learning curve on, in moving into this whole district thing.
Yeah.
It takes a little bit of adjustment.
And I appreciate Jose for saying, I really want to do something important in my neighborhood and here's what I'm seeing, right? Just like we hear from all of you, hey, this is what I'm seeing in my neighborhood. And for me, it's like, okay, let's figure out, I don't know, you probably gave me $10 million worth of projects, right? So we're not doing $10 million worth of projects, but is there an easy one that, hey, if we did this, that would help? And then is there some more? So I was, again, just sort of interested in what his thoughts were from someone who lives there and represents that area. I don't have any problem doing that. I just don't want to do it in a vacuum. Not have the rest of you sort of know, because as we know, staff time is very valuable. And when we ask them to do one thing, that means they're not doing something else. And so I didn't want you guys to know that I've got favorites over one or the other. So
Just
I would say-
remember, I'm new here, and I came up to him, because like, hey, I don't know what projects, let's get them done.
Yeah.
So I talked to him.
Yeah. And for us to figure out cost, right? Because I think, what I used to think was 100,000 is now 500,000. And what he thinks Public Works crew can do in a weekend might be, it might be $1 million. We just got to, work our way through it all. So.
We definitely want to do it the right way because this is one of the problems that Yakima City Council is struggling with. And
Right.
they're now bringing in counselors so that the council members get along
Yeah.
because they're not getting their way.
Yeah. So that's what I'm just trying to be,
Arm wrestle you up for a sidewalk.
You'll win.
So am I expecting you guys to get me a list, or do you want to open up the discussion sort of maybe in a month or so with Jose's list and some of the stuff that Mark had, and we'll just sort of work through it? Does that work?
Open up a
Bring
discussion.
me some stuff? Okay. I'll plan on that. Thank you for the email on the stuff from the Health District on the coronavirus. And I know Anna was on a webinar today, and so she's sort of learning about what's going on. And I am not in panic mode yet, but there are those that are and think this is going to be something serious. So I know we talked to directors today, and we sort of have a plan, and but keeping our fingers crossed that it sort of.
Gonzaga University recalled all of their students in the Florence program to come back to the campus, and then they changed their mind and said, no, go home.
Okay. don't come here.
Of course, they're all over Europe because it's spring break.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and they don't want to go back to campus because if they're infected.
That's right.
Yeah, they first told them to come back to campus. Then
Yeah.
Somebody went, wait.
Council members, anything for the good of the order?
The Museum Board of Trustees and some community members met last Friday afternoon and Saturday morning, the long weekend, to begin working on the strategic plan that the museum is coming up with. So we went through some goal setting and visioning and mission setting. And this is kind of the initial kickoff on the process, which will continue over presumably the next couple of months. There probably are going to be some asks, at least in the strategic plan of the city, since we own the building. But there was some very lively discussion of some new concepts and new things to freshen up the museum itself over the next 20, 30 years.
Good.
And we met at the North Central Regional Library headquarters facility.
Yeah.
That room just amazes me every time I use it. It's
Upstairs room or the
yeah,
boardroom?
upstairs.
Upstairs room.
It's such a
Upstairs, beautiful.
fabulous space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think we have a tour of the new library coming up pretty quick. I don't know how far along they are, if it's going to be done, but I think it's getting
Yeah,
close.
when I spoke with the library director, she said.
Barbara, yeah.
Yeah, she called it that we would be invited to do a hard hat tour
Okay, good.
of the renovation.
Yeah. Anything else from council members? So next week we will not meet because it's the first Thursday.
Thursday.
So we'll see you in 2 weeks.
And I will not be at the Public Works
Okay. When do,
When's public?
Tuesday?
Tuesday.
Okay.
Tuesday I'll be in.
Okay, so
I can jump in
yeah,
again.
why don't you jump in, Keith? It was nice having you there.
Hmm?
Talk
Appreciate that, yeah.
Yeah, perfect. All right, everybody, we're adjourned.